obviously the day NFL trade deadline, and a lot of people thought Deshaun Watson would be moved mostly to Miami, right? Those were the main rumors. Well, it turns out that he wasn't, and he was not moved, Rob, because he would not settle his Rob G, correct me if I'm wrong, 22 civil suits? Is that the number? He wouldn't settle those. Rob, the Dolphins went as far as to have owner Stephen Ross speak on the telephone with Deshaun. Obviously, the Texans gave him permission. He spoke to him, and Deshaun would not settle, and that's why he's still a Houston Texan. Now, let me just say this, and we talked about it last week, Rob. First of all, look, I know it looks bad. It's like 32 women or 30-something women accusing him of some foul stuff. And some of them now are looking at potentially criminal charges, right? But I've always said this, right? If I was in his shoes, if I knew I was innocent, then I'm not, it's hard to settle. And Rob, remember, he had a pristine image.
Yes,
before these charges, right? Before these lawsuits. And he was, everybody knew him as an upstanding guy, high character, the whole 9 yards. And if I knew that what was coming out was just lies, then I would stick by my guns too, like he is. But Rob, it's so many women, stories that have already come out.
Not pretty, Chris.
Are not pretty, right. And so I guess he's saying those are flat out lies. I know they're also saying some of the women he did have consensual sexual relations with.
So he did have something.
Right. That could, that maybe, obviously not all of them, or he would have said that. But if it's some of them, Rob, maybe that's enough to cast doubt on the others. I don't know. But I think you disagree with me, but I'm just saying, if I know I'm innocent, I get where he's coming from.
Chris, see, here's where it's different. It's not like he killed somebody and you're confessing to something that you didn't do and you're going to jail. So sometimes when you settle, it doesn't mean that, like, you're totally guilty.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Like you're totally guilty. And all of this isn't true. There's probably some bits and pieces. Yes, I put myself into this by flying women into Houston and engaging in sex, even if it was consensual with strangers and women that I didn't know. Like, I put myself in this to a certain extent, and that's why I'm in trouble, because I was reckless with who I exposed myself to and engaged in sex with. And this has all come back to me, and obviously, but the ends to a mean is
means
that
to an end.
Right, means to an end. Sorry, is that I need to get from underneath this, and I don't know. I'm so soiled, Chris, that I don't know if even if things go on, do people still believe? You don't go back to that image that you had before this, because there's so many details that came out and will come out eventually, right? Even
well, that's
more.
the thing too. A lot. I mean, he's got to be pretty sure of himself.
You got to be careful, because this is why people settle all the time, Chris. They don't want discovery. Ask the NFL why they settled with Colin Kaepernick if they had nothing to hide. I wouldn't give him a dime. We didn't take him because we don't think he could play. That's what they could use. That's their argument. Nobody picked him because he couldn't play. But if they go through that and have discovery and they look through those emails and there's any hint of collusion or whatever, the damage is even bigger, Chris. So that's why you don't want discovery sometimes. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet and you got to say, I need to make this stop and go away. And in this case, not only could that have happened had he settled some of this situation, but he also could have gone on with his football career, because you had a taker. You had somebody who was willing, even though you're not out of the woods. Stephen Ross was a willing taker, Chris.
Right.
And he could have done it.
You wanted out. You wanted out.
Right. You wanted out. Here was your out. And he didn't do it. So I get what you're saying. I've said to you before, I would never, ever, I've watched forensic files forever, and you see these stories where people are investigated or interrogated by the cops, Chris, and they admit to doing something that when they have the DNA, they find out they weren't even there. Like they weren't involved.
Right.
And nobody could make me admit to something that I didn't do. But settling a murky situation like this, I think I know I would have settled by now.
Well, for him not to settle, Rob, even the stuff we've already heard kind of has to be untrue, at least from his standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've heard things that he's supposedly done to these women, the way he's exposed himself, the things he's asked them to do, and this and that. If I'm in his shoes, it's like the only reason I don't settle is if those are lies. Right? Like, if I know that's not true, I never asked her to do this. I never exposed myself to her. Right? That's the only way, because you're right. If you did do those things and more is to come out, then it could really get ugly. I will say this though, Rob. Had he settled, he could move on from this. I mean, there's a lot of people who have done some heinous things.
Pretty foul stuff, no doubt about it.
Look, in a lot of walks of life, people have moved on from it. But if you're an athlete in particular, and a great one, then people, they love you. They idolize you. They're willing to turn a blind eye. Yes.
Kobe settled the civil suit. Let's just keep it real.
And Kobe is regarded as a hero. And I got nothing negative to say about Kobe. But I'm just saying that he moved on from his
settled the
in Colorado.
suit. Yes, he did.
And so I will say this though, Rob. I think you feel like he can't move past this ever.
No,
if he's exonerated, if it comes out that these women are lying, and many of them are lying, and enough to cast doubt on the ones who, we're not sure about, I think he will be fully exonerated. Right?
I don't think so, because his behavior, his behavior doesn't sound like the guy we thought he was. That's what I'm talking about.
But I'm saying if a lot of that's lies.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's the type of exoneration you need.
I don't think you're going to be exonerated from 32 women. That's just me. There's no way you didn't do anything during 32 women came out of nowhere to lie on you. Don't buy that. 32?
I hear you. I'm not saying I believe it necessarily. I'm just saying,
right,
if it's able to be proven that half of them are lying and the other half, now we're wondering, well, what are they, who knows? I think he could move on.
Okay.
I think he could, but it'll remain to be seen.